Hey everybody, it's Bruno. Here's my new episode of MB. Be my next guest on MB by clicking on the link below and we'll contact you. So listen, enjoy the episode.
That's right. What's up, you sucker?
What do you make of how the press, firstly, is being treated in the sense of a good friend, Donald Trump? People like Donald Trump that openly, right from the podium, is that what you call it, the podium?
Or it could be the podium,
whatever.
Yeah,
even our prime minister, they take shots at journalists and point blank call them fake news, and notwithstanding if they're making stuff up, because I believe that a lot of stuff was made up when we were kids too. We just believed it, trust me. But what do you make, first part A, what do you make of guys like Trump, guys like Trudeau that just go that hard on journalists and reporters?
Oh boy, that's a good question. It's hard to generalize, but to be honest, I can understand where some of the frustration and some of the opinions come from. I'll just give you an example, and it comes to bias, right? And it comes to that perception that certain media are, that's obviously Trump's shtick these days, is that media is really biased against him, right? Years ago, I think it was in 1994. It was 94. I actually went to Ottawa. I went back home for a few months. My brother was getting married, so it was perfect. And I was there to cover Parliament Hill for the Herald. And the reason they sent me there is because they wanted a local journalist to cover the Reform Party at that time with Preston Manning on the Hill. And they wanted it because they wanted a sort of perhaps a more fair depiction of what the Reform Party was doing, because at that time, oh my gosh, the media in Ottawa, and I won't mention the media outlets, were so biased against the Reform Party. Here's a bunch of hicks from the prairies in Alberta, etc., and everything they did, they were slammed, boom, 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 boom. So the Herald, as I said, sent me there for a couple months to cover it and do stories on the Reform Party that were, quote, unbiased, so to speak. So it's there. It's been there all the time. There is bias in the media. It's just how blatant does it become, right? And I can tell right now how many people look at a certain network out there and talk about how biased it is towards the federal government and Trudeau and the Liberal Party, but those are perceptions out there. And once you get a perception, it's hard to get out of it, right? It's extremely hard to get out of it. And again, I just as I said, preface these comments before about it's hard to generalize. Let's not forget that there's a ton of journalists and media out there that do their job and do it in a fair way. And so you just have to remember that as well.
So on the flip side, what are journalists doing these days and reporters doing to get called out, like so openly and blatantly and almost disrespectfully? Is it fake news? Like, are they just throwing out fake news to be so they become sometimes when I watch a press conference and we brought up Trump or something, I'm starting to think that some of these, because that's the most blatant one, right?
Yeah.
I'm starting to think that these journalists just come out and say, reporters just say something so that they can become famous. And so,
but see, I in some ways I don't like the term fake news, right? Because I really think it's very difficult for the media to the legitimate media, right? To go and undertake fake news. What you're dealing with is just different biases, different slants on things, and I don't know. You're an older enough guy to understand and remember this guy, Paul Harvey. Remember Paul Harvey?
How old do you think I am?
About a year old.
He's a hockey player.
No, not Doug.
joking.
Not Doug Harvey. Paul Harvey was this guy on radio.
John Harvey played for the Argos. That I remember. Anyways, go ahead.
Paul Harvey was this guy on radio
Yeah.
that used to show up and tell a story and then stop and go to a commercial break and then come back with the rest of the story, right? And I
Right.
think that's the thing, right? There's always these two sides of the story, right? And if you are a good journalist and doing your job right, you're going to present both sides of that story. The
Right.
problem is, I think, with some people today, the problem they find with the media is there's only that first side of the story or one side of the story that's being presented, right?
Okay, let's talk gravy.
Gravy?
Yeah, big CFL fans.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Favorite Ottawa Rough Rider. Now we're not talking
My
renting.
favorite
What do they call
Ottawa
them?
Rough
The
Rider.
Rouge,
Oh my
the
gosh.
red and black right now, but the
No,
Ottawa
no,
Rough
no.
Riders.
Oh my gosh. Do you know, and only people in Ottawa would get this, but we used to live in just off of Maryville Road and Clyde Avenue up in that area. And in the summertime when I was a kid, I'd get on my bike and I would go down to Lansdowne Park, downtown Ottawa, and I'd watch the summer, or not the summer, but the training camps
Yeah.
for the Rough Riders.
Behind
And
the south,
two
behind
a
the
day.
south,
Well,
south stands.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, along the
was there?
what the hell was that? Along
Bank
the
Street.
canal. No, it was along the canal. Whatever that.
Colonel By.
Colonel By. I used to go there every day. Go in the morning, catch
Yep.
their morning workouts, cycle back home. My mother would have lunch,
prosciutto sandwich?
yeah, something like that, prosciutto and provolone or whatever, and then go back for the afternoon. And so like, oh gosh, the riders were like in my blood at that time. And I remember, I can't remember, I think it was 60. They won in 68. They also won in 67 in Grey Cup, I think so. But I remember 68. I remember going down on Bank Street. Bank Street is the big street in Ottawa, and there was the parade, the Grey Cup parade. I was there watching Russ Jackson, and yeah.
That was a little bit before my time, but I remember those guys.
Those are glory days.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, Mario. Greatest CFL player of all time, but you've had to have seen him though.
Gosh.
You can't pick, the Babe Ruth of the CFL that you've never seen or anything.
Oh no! Oh gosh! You know what? That is such
And we're a little biased because we're both original Rough Rider fans.
Yeah,
Die
you
hard.
know, there's just great players out there like the Russ Jacksons of the world, but and look in Calgary, guys like Doug Flutie, and then Edmonton, Warren Moon, and that's almost an impossible question to answer. Like,
Yeah, but I asked a hard question.
I
Mario.
know.
Unlike you now, right?
There's just no way
You got
I
to come
can
up with one.
pick one. Oh my gosh.
See, I know one.
I don't know. I'll say Russ Jackson, but okay.
Okay, Russ, yeah.
How about you?
I think the greatest impact player was Johnny Rogers.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
People don't realize the impact Johnny Rogers. I grew up a good boy, right? And I worked hard with, my dad's service station, whatever. And I don't know what possessed a whole bunch of my friends, and I kind of followed them one day. I snuck away, and they were egging the Montreal Alouettes bus, over the Bank Street Bridge. And I kind of participated in it. I must say that I could throw, so I hit the bus. And the reason why Johnny Rogers was just, we use the word disruptor.
Yeah.
He was a complete disruptor.
Yeah.
And one of the first players ever to back it up on the field. And I remember Mario, you were there when he would score a touchdown. I vaguely remember, but I remember I was just like really, really young. And he would turn around and go backwards the last 5 yards and taunt everybody with it. And then he'd go back to the sideline and wear the mink coat and sit on his helmet and light up a cigar.
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll ever see it. I could only imagine if the internet was then back then on Johnny Rogers. But
From Nebraska.
Nebraska, yeah, Heisman Trophy winner.
Yep.
And that's who I. So greatest hockey player you've ever seen?
Oh.
You're a Habs fan.
I'm a Habs fan, or was a Habs fan.
No more?
No.
Flames fan?
You know what? No, nobody's fan now.
Nobody.
Nobody's fan. you know what? I stopped cheering for the Habs during the the terrible Irving Grunman years.
Oh, yeah.
Where they just did stupid things, and unfortunately they went away. Geez, it may not be politically correct to say this these days, but they were known as the Flying Frenchmen, right?
Yeah.
Remember that? And and they had those great teams, that they just skated like the wind out there, and then they changed under the Grunman era, and they got away from that, and that's when I went away. But I know you're not going to like this, but Guy Lafleur.
Guy Lafleur, oh my God. So I got to tell you a story about Guy Lafleur, is that when I was really, 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 really young, like 5, 6 years old, everybody in the neighborhood used to cheer for the Canadians. And they traded a player that later became, legendary Wally Kozak. I think he played with this guy. For I don't know what reason, I used to wear 24 or something. They traded a guy called Chuck Lefley.
Mm-hmm.
And he was my favorite Montreal Canadian at the time-ish.
Yeah.
And they traded him for a bag of pucks, I think, to the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I stopped cheering for them.
Mm.
And Bernie Parent started playing for the Flyers.
Yep.
And he was, only God saves more than Bernie.
Oh, I know.
So I started cheering for the Flyers in protest. And the greatest deal I ever made, as far as I'm concerned, because I used to get the Guy Lafleur hockey card. I used to draw horns on him.
Oh, gosh.
And Ken Dryden, I used to paint his, mask in Flyers colors.
Oh.
And then I go to the park at Beach Park, and the greatest deal I ever made is I gave away, which is really hard to find, Ken Dryden's, a couple of Ken Dryden's, Guy Lafleur, all these great hockey guys from Montreal that I had for a Chuck Lefley St. Louis card. So no, that was an incredible time. Especially Ottawa was a tweener city, right? So
you know what? I was when I was in Montreal in March. Yeah, it was in March, right? I was visiting my daughter, and I had seen her in Montreal a couple of times,
Mm-hmm.
and then I realized, geez, I've missed going to the Forum.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, geez, it's not far away from where we are. My last trip to Montreal in March, I walked into the old Forum off St. Catherine, right? And
it's crazy.
And in the kind of, it's like, I don't know if it's like a retail office building now. And you walk in, and in the area, center ice with the Habs sign, with the C.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just standing in the middle of it, and I'm getting freaking goosebumps now talking about it. I literally cried. My kids are looking at me going, what the hell's wrong with them?
Yeah.
I literally cried just standing there. Yeah.
Well, it brings back so many memories of, that was the game back then. And I was saying Ottawa was a tweener town because it was in between Montreal and Toronto. It still is, but they didn't have a national hockey team.
No.
And so either you cheered really hard for the Habs or you
it was one or the other.
Cried a lot because you're a Leafs fan.
Yeah.
And it was a magical time, I think. And I was thinking back that the 70s, if you look back at the 70s, what a incredible time to be in that corridor, because that's kind of your time before you moved out here. But you remember the Riders would win. The Habs never lost.
Oh, they never lost in the early 70s, yeah.
And it was just, and the Olympics, the Olympics hit that year.
68?
76.
Oh, 76.
Yeah, the Olympics hit.
76, sorry.
And nothing could go wrong. And then all of a sudden Montreal.
I was thinking the Expo.
Expo 67.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden Montreal kind of lost its cachet later on, and Toronto became the center of the universe. But they still haven't won a Stanley Cup, though.
Nope.
So
I won't for a while.
Yeah. But it certainly was a magical time.
Oh, it was. And you know what? I just, people look at what I've done, and I've done a lot in terms of different areas of coverage, right? But I always say to people, like, the sports was the best time of my life. Covering sports in this city, and when I covered sports in Calgary, it was roughly between 82 to 90. Around that period. And the 80s and the mid 80s, sports in this city was just hopping. And, we had, teams like the Dinosaurs, right? The football team, the Dinos, winning Vanier Cups. We had, the university having Olympians that won gold medals like Mark Tewksbury.
You had the Olympics here.
Yeah, we had the Olympics here. Just so much going on in the city at that time. And you know what I find really interesting, Bruno, that I run into a lot of those sports people today in what I do in terms of business coverage. And they've become successful businessmen, guys like Tony Spallettini at Spalumbo's and Mike Palumbo at Spalumbo's. People like that, they're all over the city. But, the more important thing is not only are they successful, but they're part of the community and they've given back and supported the community because they realize how important the community was for them when they were playing and when they were starting off in business.
Well, you know what? That's pretty much all the time we have for this episode today. Thank you for tuning in with us. And you know what? Make sure you subscribe to our Megapix Media channel so you will never miss an episode. And also, you can follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram. We have content almost every day. So thank you very much for joining us. I'll see you guys soon.